Okay, this is my bit for the Will Space Pirates video. Hope you like this. That's right, Will. Yeah, the Space Pirates is my least favourite story of Doctor Who. Um, Not that there's no good things in it. Like episodes 4 to 6 are slightly better than the first three, and there's that really fun escape scene at the start of episode 4 with the whole pin things that Will did a great animation of. And the character of Madeline's pretty good. And the main three leads, of course. But unfortunately the story's just not good in almost any sense. It's like the first two episodes are barely anything. The main leads don't even come in till almost 15 minutes into part one, and then they spend the rest of that and the next episode in a room pretending that they're floating in space. You've got Milo Clancy, who's really annoying and kind of pointless, and Cavan's not really that great of a villain. He looks cool, but he's not really that great of a character, and we don't really care that much about the space security people. Not the same ones from Dalek's master plan, unfortunately. No, these other police cops in space. The space police. Not the Jadoon, not the cool kind like them or the Wrath Warriors. No. Just guys. Yeah, it's not really that interesting, and it's 6 episodes long. It's padded, it's dragged out. Unlike the War Games, which it's 10 parts, but even though they do a lot of back and forth and going to same places over and over again, there's a momentum to it, and it's got great tension. It's a great story, great characters, really fun. You know, might not have needed to be 10 parts, but it earns it. Whilst this episode, God, 6 parts, it's a freaking drag, and unfortunately, um, yeah, the story gets a lot of its bad reputation from a lot of those bad elements. So, yeah, and unfortunately for me, it is my least favorite from the whole show. Yes, indeed, Will. Um, this is my least favorite story of Doctor Who, the Space Pirates. It's just really, really bad. Not that there's nothing good in it. Like for starters, the final 3 episodes are better than the first three by a pinch. They're a bit more enjoyable. And the main three leads are, of course, on full force as normal. Madeline's a pretty decent character, and the escape scene at the start of part 4 is really fun. Will's done an animation of that, by the way. Go watch it. Unfortunately, the story as a whole is very dull. The first 3 episodes are especially a drag. Really, really boring. Nothing hardly happens in them. The first episode, the Doctor and Jamie and Zoe don't even turn up till nearly 15 minutes in, and then the rest of that episode and the next episode, they're trapped in a room trying to pretend that they're floating in space with no gravity. Milo Clancy is a very, very dull character. No, he's not. Milo Clancy is a very annoying character, and he's kind of pointless, only there to be considered to be an ally of Cavan, the main villain, who looks cool but is not. He's pretty generic. Clancy is not associated with Cavan, by the way. That's just what the space police think. They're not really that much better. They're not really much more interesting, or I mean, they're less not annoying than Milo, but they're not really interesting. And it's just got a really sluggish and padding pace to the story. Compare this to the next story, the War Games, which is 10 episodes. And yet, even though there's a lot of back and forth between places and a lot of running around, going in circles in places, it's never dull. It earns maybe that 10. It might earn that 10-parter. Cut those bits. It earns being 10 parts, even though it may not need it to be. But with some great supporting characters, tension, action, and stuff actually happening each episode, it kind of works in its favour, despite maybe being a little bit long. Even the Seeds of Doom. Doom? No, wrong one. Even the Seeds of Death, another 6-parter, had that fuck. Even the Seeds of Death, the previous story, which was also a 6-parter, had that momentum going with the tension between what was going on with the humans and the Ice Warriors, and even some interhuman relationship rivalry stuff going on regarding the Rockets and T-Met. All of that was pretty interesting. It maybe, yeah, that one worked as being six-parters. That one worked at being six parts, but Space Pirates, this feels like it was just dragged out. I don't even know if there was enough here for a four-parter, let alone six. So it's got a decent idea, but it's otherwise really, really badly handled. Anyway, back to Will with the rest of this video. Thank you, Will. Yes, The Space Pirates is my least favourite Doctor Who story. It's just really bad. I really can't really stand it sometimes, and it's incredibly boring. I'll give it this. Episodes 4, 5, and 6 are a bit more likeable, a bit more enjoyable than episodes 1, 2, 3, but not by much. And Madeline is a decent supporting character, and of course, the main three leads are on full fire as per usual. Unfortunately, that doesn't really make up for the rest of the story. Not only is parts 1, 2, and 3 an absolute slog, but like I said, 4, 5, and 6 aren't really that much better. Just a bit. They're slightly better. Milo Clancy is one of the most annoying supporting characters in any story. The space police are also uninteresting. Cavan, whilst he looks cool with that costume and the helmet and the gun, he's an otherwise generic villain. Not really any different to any other regular old villain that you might find in any episode or any other piece of media. The first episode is very slow. The Doctor, Jamie, Zoe, and the TARDIS don't even turn up till nearly 15 minutes in. It's about 14 minutes, 40 to 45 seconds. And then the rest of that episode and episode 2, they're stuck in a room pretending that they're flying through space with gravity, and they don't really do much until episode 3 comes along and they team up with Milo Clancy, who the space police think is working with Cavan. It becomes really dull really quickly, unfortunately. And it's just very tedious, especially episode 3. Despite having a bit more going on than the first two, it's really bad. I don't really know what happened here. Compare this to the next story, the War Games, which is 10 episodes, and this is a six-parter. War Games is 10 episodes, and whilst there is a lot of back and forth and going to the same places and going in circles and recaptures a lot, there's momentum, there's action, there's great characters, there's a great story, there's a mystery. It may not have needed to be 10 episodes, but it kind of earns it in a way. And it builds the story up as it goes along, from thinking they're in World War One in the first episode, progressing all the way to meeting the Time Lords for the first time in the final episode. There's stuff going on progressing that story, even if it's a long one. Even the Seeds of Death, the previous story, another six-parter, did the same thing over those 6 episodes, with the whole Ice Warriors wanting to take over the moon and T-Mat situation and causing snow on Earth and the whole Rocket versus T-Mat situation, etc. Even that story had that great momentum going for it, all interesting stuff, but the Space Pirates has barely any of that. In fact, like the biggest kind of momentum is what's Madeline's involvement with the Space Pirates, and that's really all you care about. And yeah, otherwise the Space Pirates, the idea is decent, but the execution, both on a script and on the production level, okay, the production's kind of the same as per normal, but in terms of actually showing the story, in both cases they fall flat, unfortunately, and that's why the story's got such a bad reputation, in my opinion, and it's why I consider it the weakest story of the show. Anyway, back to Will to continue talking about this story. Oh, there's also a really good bit in episode 4. Oh, I'm going to cut that. Thank you, Will. Yeah, The Space Pirates is my least favourite Doctor Who story of all time. Yeah, I don't really like this one. It's very boring. Hardly anything happens for the first 3 episodes, and they're slog to get through. The main 3 characters don't even turn up till nearly 15 minutes into part 1, and these episodes are 25 minutes each. So it's almost two-thirds? So that's almost 3/5 of the story episode. So that's almost 3/5 of the episode. You've got Milo Clancy, who's one of the most annoying Doctor Who characters. supporting characters. You got the Space Police, who are not really that much interesting. You got Cavan, who looks cool but is not. He's kind of very generic. You do have Madman, who's a pretty decent character, I'll give it that. And episodes 4, 5, and 6 are a little bit better than 1, 2, and 3, but not by much. There's also a really good escape scene at the start of episode 4, which ends with the Doctor Land company landing on some pins, which Will animated that scene, by the way. It's really good. Go check it out. And of course, the main 3 leads are on fire, despite them only being in the last 10 minutes or so of the first. Despite them not really doing much in the first 2 episodes, apart from being trapped in a room, pretending it's being flying through space because of no gravity or whatnot. And they kind of take a back seat to the supporting characters in those episodes. But unlike in some of the Colin Baker stories, those supporting characters aren't really interesting. And compared to the next story, The War Games, which is 10 episodes long, and despite that having a lot of back and forth and going to the same places, running around, recaptures a lot, the momentum builds each episode. There's a lot of stuff going on, lots of great characters, there's action, there's excitement, there's a mystery, and it's just building all the way until the climax where we meet the Time Lords for the first time. It's a great built-up story. It's a great built-up story. Despite being really long, it kind of earns that by progressing up the scales. Even Seeds of Death, which was a 6-parter, also did that as well, with the whole Tiamat situation, the Ice Warriors on the moon trying to send stuff down to Earth to cause it to snow, the rockets, etc. There was some really good stuff in that story. It's a really great story, and it does really well progressing that over 6 episodes. Here, it falls flat on its face, and it's just bad and boring, and ultimately just not worth the effort. It's a shame some of the episodes are missing, almost all of them, but yeah, I can see why this one wouldn't be one of the ones that people would be in a hurry to see again, or have an animation of. Oh well. Anyway, back to Will for the rest of this video. Thank you, Will. Yeah, The Space Pirates is my least favourite Doctor Who story of all time. Yeah, I don't like this story. And that's coming from me, who likes most of Doctor Who. Even the stuff that I don't really like, I can usually find some good elements of, usually the production. In the case of The Space Pirates, there are some decent things, like the character Madeline's alright. The production is typically the same as other episodes of the time. The main 3 leads are on fire as per usual, and episodes 4, 5, and 6 are a teeny weeny little bit more enjoyable than episodes 1, 2, and 3, and a little bit more likeable. Not by much, but a little bit. Teeny weeny little bit. Also, there's a really great escape scene at the end of episode... Not the end. Also, there's a really great escape scene at the start of episode 4, which lands with them landing on some pins, which Will animated that scene. It's really great animation. Go check that out. But yeah, the rest of the story, in fact, even though the story is just really dull and boring as a whole, especially the first 3 episodes, which are hardly anything. There isn't really that great of a plot. There isn't really that great of a plot. Cavan is a boring, generic villain. He looks cool with the helmet and the costume and the gun, but he's otherwise one of the worst villains, or at the very least one of the most boring and one of the most generic villains. At the very least, he's just like nothing. He's like a typical generic villain who you can find in any piece of fiction, who just happens to be the bad guy for this story. Milo Clancy is one of the most annoying and pointless supporting characters of any story. The Space Police aren't really very interesting, and for some reason they think Milo Clancy's got stuff to do with Cavan. There's a whole thing about that. It's actually the more interesting thing is Madeline's relationship to the Space Pirates, as well as to Milo. And episodes 1 and 2 are just slog. Well, episode 3 as well. They're all slogged. But episode 1 and 2, the Doctor, Jamie and Zoe and the TARDIS don't come in till 40 minutes, 45 seconds into episode 1. That's nearly 2/3 of... No, it's not. That's nearly 3/5 of the story. No, it's not. That's nearly 3/5 of the episode. These episodes are 25 minutes each. They come in nearly 15 minutes in. And then the rest of that episode and the following episode, they're just kind of stuck in a room, and it's spinning around because it's supposed to not have gravity because it's been separated from the rest of the space station or something. And then episode 3 is just a fucking slog. As I said, 4, 5, and 6 are a little bit better. They actually push the plot along a bit better, but yeah, it's a really bad and slow story. It doesn't really work execution-wise from the... It's got some decent ideas, but on a script level and the final product shown, it doesn't really work. Compare this to the next story, The War Games, which is 10 episodes. And yes, there's a lot of back and forth and recaptures and going in circles and so forth, but each episode builds upon the momentum of the previous one and has a lot of great supporting characters, and great action, great tension, great mystery, all the while building up this big story. Say whether you think it should be 10 parts or not, but it at least kind of earns it with the big build-up. And even Seeds of Death, the previous story, a 6-parter as well, did the same thing over those 6 episodes with the not the Sea Devils, with the Ice Warriors, the Seeds, the T-Max, the Rocket T-Max rivalry, the stuff on the moon, etc. All of that was all really great as well. Space Pirates, on the other hand, it can't carry those levels of momentum, and it feels like it could have been a 3 or 4-parter stretched out to 6. And it kind of shows with how much padding there is, bad characters, and just slow pacing, and just not being very interesting. It doesn't really actually have a proper ending. The Doctor and Co. just kind of hitch a lift. It doesn't really have a proper ending either. The Doctor and Co. hitch a lift on Milo Clancy's ship to get back to the TARDIS. End of episode. And that's the last episode. End of episode 6. Next time we're going to see them, they're coming to World War 1 in War Games Part 1. This is the penultimate episode story. This is the penultimate story of Patrick Troughton's run as Doctor Who. What a way to honour the guy. Thank God he had an awesome final. What a way to honour the guy's legacy. No, I'm going to cut these bits. Yeah, this is the penultimate Second Doctor story. Thank God the last story was awesome. Because this was not. This was anything but. This story is really bad. Anyway, I'm going to hand back over to Will now to continue this video. Thank you, Will. Yes, sadly, the Space Pirates is my least favourite Doctor Who story of all time. It's really dull, really boring, really slow, very sluggish for me. And it's very uninteresting. The first 3 episodes especially are really bad. 4, 5, and 6 are a little bit better. There's a bit more enjoyment to those. There's a bit more stuff going on. But the first 3 are really bad and really slow and sluggish. Episodes 1 and 2... Episode 1 doesn't even have the Doctor and Co. team turn up until nearly 15 minutes in. That's 3/5 of the episode. And then the rest of it and the next one, they're stuck in a room floating around in space because no gravity, with the room ejected from the rest of the space station. You have a really boring and generic villain in the form of Cavern, the space pirate. He looks cool with the gun and the helmet and the costume, but he's otherwise just a very generic villain you can find in any piece of fiction ever. Madeline's a good character, I'll give that. That's one of the pros of this story, alongside the main 3 leads being on fire as per normal, the production being typically as good as the other episodes of the season and that era. And the escape scene at the start of episode 4 with the pins, that's really pretty fun. By the way, Will's animated that bit with the pins, so do go and check that animation out. It's really great. Back to the negatives. Milo Clancy is one of the most boring supporting characters of the series, and the Space Police aren't really any much interesting. And the Space Police aren't that much interesting. So altogether, it comes to a really weak and uninteresting story, and it doesn't work. It's got some decent ideas, but it doesn't work on an execution level, both on the script and the final piece of telly. Unfortunately, um, compare this to the War Games episodes 1. Compare this to the next story, the War Games, which has a great momentum across each of its 10 episodes, even though they do go back and forth and get recaptured a lot. It does build up on the momentum as the story keeps going. Say whether you think it deserves to be a 10-parter or not, but it definitely earns it by keeping that momentum going with great action, great mystery, great drama, great characters, great suspense, etc. Even the previous story, The Seeds of Death, another 6-parter, managed to keep that going with the whole Team Act thing, the Ice Warriors plan, the seeds causing it to snow, the Team Act versus Rocket rivalry, that whole thing. All of that is all great stuff across those 6 episodes, but unfortunately the Space Pirates can't really compare to either of those two because it doesn't really have the same momentum. It feels more like it was a 3 or 4-parter stretched out to be 6, and unfortunately the padding and the slowness kind of show, and then it takes a while to get to the more interesting stuff. So on the whole, Space Pirates is my least favourite story, and that's coming from me, who likes most of Doctor Who. Even the stuff I'm not so keen on, that I like less, there's usually stuff that I do think is pretty good, mostly a production thing. But yeah, this story, this is so bad. I'm sorry. Anyway, back to Will to continue talking about this story. Don't forget to click below to subscribe to the official The Whoniversals YouTube channel. Don't forget to click below to subscribe to the official Nicholas Payne bonus content YouTube channel.